Okay, since anyhow we're discussing the concept of zivugim, it's worthwhile to skip ahead to chapter 20, Hakdama Chof, and see what he happens to mention over here about the whole concept of soulmates. So he says, Kavar bi'ayna le'el. We already said above, Ki mishpat hagilgul noiheg b'nashim kanashim love. Right? We discussed over there whether or not the whole concept of reincarnation applies equally to women as it does to men, or vice versa. And that, in fact, is a discussion to itself. He says, Vada, you should know, Ki hinei Rizal Amru, the Perkama de Sota. Chazal talk about, explain in the first chapter, in fact, the first page of the Gemara Sota, the Talmud Sota, Al Pasuk Elohim Moshid Yechidim Baisa Moitzi Asirim B'Kushrus, right? That Hashem returns the individuals to their houses, and he takes out those in prison from the jails. Pasuk from Tehillim, Ki Yesh Zivuk Rishon V'Shenis. We find, and it mentions over the Gemara, that there's a thing called the first soulmate and the second soulmate. Uma Shekasav V'Kash V'Zivukam Kiskris Yamsuf Iri B'Zivuk Shenis, right? So, there the Gemara talk about the fact that it says that a bas kol calls up before a person's married, 40 days before a person is born. 40 days before a person is born, it mentions that so-and-so is going to marry so-and-so, which makes it seem that it's very easy, in fact, to find your zivug because before you're even born. And then the Gemara comes back and says the famous thing, that it's as difficult as it is to split the sea, that's how difficult it is, in fact, to find a zivug, for a person to find their soulmate, to make a pair. Even though for Kadosh Baruch Hu everything is simple, but conceptually speaking, the Gemara is making a point. So he says that's talking about this. That when it says that it's difficult, it's talking about the zivug shun. When it says that they call up before you're born, 40 days before you're born, who you're going to marry, that's talking about your first zivug. But it talks about it's as difficult to make a zivug, a match made in heaven, as it is with the sea. That's talking about your second zivug, the second marriage, seemingly. He says, Da ki ein havana zivug rishon v'shenis kipshuto. It's not like the way it sounds. That's the way the Rizal explains it, like we said before, that everything has a sod to it. Ki kama zivugim shniyim hein tovim min rishonim. Because we find that in many cases the second zivug, the second marriage, is better than the first marriage. Which can't mean that the first one was better, because otherwise they would stay married, the second one wouldn't work out. In some cases, third and fourth and fifth and sixth, chas v'shalom, but it happens once in a while. Kamo shiri'inu b'nyanei ma'isi b'chol yom. It happens all the time. Aval ba'or v'or ha'inyan hu yuva. But the explanation is understandable. The mashik esav, or we can understand what the true pshat is, based upon what Sabah HaMishpatim says in the Zohar. Al pasuk imbal isha hu v'yatza ishto ima. Right, we saw before the pasuk going back. We saw previously in chapter 9. He comes in with a wife. He goes out with a wife. Ve'inyan hu. This is the matter. Da, you have to know. Ki kasher hadam hu chadash. Rasulamar. Ki az hi hapam harishona shaba ba'olam hazeh. When a person comes into the world for the first time in his life, the first Gilgul ever, right? So then, his zivug, his soulmate, is born with him. Like she's born at the same time. She's being set aside, prepared that he should meet her at the right time and get married at the right age. Right? That's what the Gemara says. And when the time comes to start goyad and shaduchim to get married, right? They make her accessible in a moment. They make it simple and easy to meet his soulmate, blishum tarach, right? Klal v'ikar, without any difficulty. He goes in the first shidduch, it's just the right one off the bat, and they get married. Everybody today is a gilgul. No one is here for the first time. There's no new neshamas at this stage of history, as Lasha points out. The Arizal points out that it's not going to happen today, but it did at one point in time. It happened the first time a person came to the world. He was able to get his wife the first time around are very simple without much difficulty. Let's say the guy unfortunately does a chet, doesn't do tshuva before he dies and leaves this world. So now he has to come back as a Gilgul, as we saw before, and rectify. And he has to come back for that reason. And that's what it means. His wife goes out with him. Right? She will come back, as we said before can happen, that she will come back for him because he has to rectify his avera, so now she's coming back with him. She's coming back for his benefit, for his good, not for her. She doesn't need to come back. She's okay. She's rectified. Or she can spend time in Gehenna to fix up herself later on. But she's coming back for his good. But when the time comes, he's 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever, decides it's time to get married, he wants to get married right now, and he's going on shidduchim, right, 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20, 100 shidduchim, and there's somebody who went it over 100 times. They cannot conceive what that means over 100 times, but until he found somebody who he felt he could marry, and it's not easy, it's difficult, it's painful, people complain, people cry, it's a very big problem today. Enum is the minute lo berega. However, they're not going to give her to him right away, even though she is his zivug. Ela achar tarech gadol. Only after much difficulty, the car breaks down, flat tires, she's out of town, he's out of town. It takes a long time before the whole thing works out. Before they can finally meet and go out. Lefisha kivan she's gadol al sibus eza. Why? Do they make it so difficult? Some angel up there with a terrible sense of humor. What's going on over here? Because since he's coming back, because he's done an avera, he's not clean, he's got things to rectify, to fix up. Yesh bekatchugim malav lamala. He's got angels up in Shemayim saying, this guy is, he's got what to fix up over here. We don't like this guy. He's made mistakes. He's sloppy. He's lazy. He's a balavera. He's not our kind of a person over here. They're saying, okay, so let's take a little revenge over here. Let's get back at this guy. He wanted to come back and fix up his life. He couldn't do it his lifetime, but now he's coming back to fix up his averas. Okay, actions have consequences, and one of them will be he's not going to find his wife so quickly, right? It's not only that, they will create situations to cause fighting and arguing. That it should be smooth and no smooth shidduchim process. Yes, no, it's like, it's not easy. It happens a lot of times. Valzeh amru. And that's what they're talking about. Kashal zivugam kekris yamsuf. That, as difficult as the splitting the sea is the actual making of zivugim, right? Who ba'ofen in this kind of way we talked about. Kihu nikra zivug sheni. She's called, it says zivug sheni, right? The second pairing up, so to speak. It's lamar kihi bas zivug hamitis. Not that he's getting married to a different woman. That it's not really his bas zivug, as if you can have two zivugim, two soulmates. Rather, it says that she is the original and the right one. That she is in fact his soulmate, right? However, they were already set up once before in a previous lifetime. So therefore it's called the second zivug. Since they were already married properly in their first marriage, the first zivug was done properly, that's zivug rishon, right? Rishona. So now, since they're getting married a second time in a different gilgul, that's called zivug sheni. It's the right person, the same person, and in a different lifetime, a different zivug. Ki yisha hi atzma rishon, because she is in fact the first woman. Aval hazivug ushani. So she is the first woman and the only woman, but the pairing up, that's a second. That's the second time over here, and that's what's referring to, not the second person that he's going to get married to, the second zivug he's going to find, but rather it's always the right zivug, but it's the second time they're meaning, in fact, getting married in a different lifetime. And that's why it doesn't say zivug shenis, it says zivug sheni. Zivug sheni means a second pairing. Zivug shenis would mean a different woman, a second woman there, right? Ela zivug sheni shechayzer ela zivug v'lo leisha.